to be back and excited to continue the conversation. Thank you so much for your wonderful feedback early on. And so today we want to discuss this really important kind of topic. And a lot of times, we don't see social media as a tool, but unfortunately, right, we can see it as an opportunity. Unfortunately, while many of our students may not be logging in through their devices, through the conventional approaches, that one place that we know many of our students are logging into is social media. And you know, I don't we don't want this presentation to convince you uh for every single one of you to go and get a social media account, but we just want to show you what some educators are doing to connect with their students through social media. And I know there's a lot of controversy about social media, so we'll answer questions the ethical concerns. Nowadays, though, with some social media, you're actually able to just put out content um, and then not so much be in a um, sort of personalized one-on-one communication with students, but rather you're just creating content and it's independent. So one example is doing a TikTok video. We'll see a few examples, and or a TikTok type video, right? So now it's a type of video nowadays. It doesn't have to be TikTok, but it has a message in it, and you just put it out there, and then you don't really look for the engagement or interaction with students. You're just putting out the message out there. So we'll give you some concrete examples. Um, but I just want to make sure that folks know too that we're also talking about supporting students beyond just social media, supporting students through all of these mediums, the asynchronous education we're having to provide. And asynchronous is important. It just really means, for me, asynchronous really means location independent education, right? That we're meeting students where they're at, no matter what their location is. And that's pretty tough to do. So we'll give you some examples as we move along. And this will be like a part one. And then later on this afternoon, we'll also have kind of a part two. And the part two is the cultural responsive piece. Okay. All right. So here we go. So I'll start with this quote that the transformative educator shapeshifts to meet students where they are at. The transformative educator shapeshifts to meet students where they are at. And we think of this concept of shapeshifting that many times, right, it's crucial for us to teach our students the skill set to be able to shapeshift, the skill set to be able to adapt to their environment. We talked about resilience in my presentation early on and what it means to be resilient. One of the things is to shift based on your environment. One thing we know about At Promise students is that they're very good about shape shifting, right? That maybe they live in one environment where they're going through all the ACEs, that adverse childhood experience, but then they know how to survive it. And then when they come to us, we're not teaching them just to survive. Remember, that was my point earlier. We're also teaching them to thrive, right? That's the difference between resilience and um, prosperity, right? That a prosperity framework allows us to teach our kids not just to survive, but also to thrive. And so that prosperity framework is crucial. It's crucial to have. So as an educator, your kind of approach is to shapeshift as well, right? That you adapt to these new mediums, these new environments. Just 3 months ago, I didn't know how to do any of this, and I'm still learning. And you learn, you adapt, you shapeshift. Like I put in my headphones to make sure that no more beeping submarines approach us as we're having this conversation, right? So I had to make some adjustments. And so, the same way as educators, we constantly have to adjust. We have to shapeshift to meet our students where they are at. Okay. And now I would love to introduce my great, great collaborator, Mr. Love Jefferson. Mr. Love Jefferson is a former NFL football player. He went to Washington State University, and by his junior year, uh, Sports Illustrated had named him among the top 10 players at his position in the country. He went to a Pac-10 championship, a Rose Bowl appearance, and has really, after his NFL career, spent a large amount of his time motivating leaders in industry, but also leaders in education and young people, teaching the social and emotional competence in preparation for life for our young people. He's an incredible team leader, and I'm proud to call him my wonderful collaborator and colleague. And many of you saw the movie The Pushouts just in the last couple days, and you saw Love in action in that movie. He was running the ropes courses. He was motivating those kids to get through the ropes courses. He's an incredible colleague. Um, and please help me welcome Mr. Love Jefferson.
Hi, thank you, Victor. I mean, here we are. What a great experience and opportunity this is to adjust in everything that has shifted within just a few months. I'm really excited to just be able to share some experience, some thoughts, and a bit of framework with everyone that I've discovered over the years of working with multiple industries and now really focusing my attention on young at promise people that are looking to transition into higher education or their professional space that they choose. And understanding that now we're at a time where um, emotional well-being is something that's really important. And so for us to look at uh, emotional well-being of ourselves and also have that lens in those that we serve, it's a great place to start to see how we can create influence, how we can create impact, and really assist and guide, those young people that we're in front of through all of these different changes in the current state of just the way the world is shifting. So I'm really excited, and thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this and sharing from where you are to here in sunny California and Long Beach. This is pretty amazing. So every time I get on a Zoom call or something like this, I just think about how we're still able to manage to get connected, and through these devices and through social media, it's not something that can be the big bad bear in the woods, but we can actually look at it as something that can assist us to adjust and figure out how we can continue to do our work and our life's passion effectively. And so thanks, Victor, for the intro and the invitation, and all of you for showing up and being here. Hopefully by the end of this, we'll walk away with something that we find as being valuable, if not for the work that we do, but for ourselves. And so I really like to uh, open an invitation to say, as we move through these things, let's check in on ourselves and the things that we're asking of us to do as individuals, and see how, those that are in front of us, those that we serve, may be experiencing similar feelings when we start creating this self-awareness and talking about EQ and emotional well-being. So I'm happy to dive into it, and we got some time, so let's have a good one.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Love. And yes, so let's start right away with a check-in. And please, one of the things we want to kind of model here is that as that transformative educator, that shape-shifting educator, you almost, it's overwhelming, but you have to be kind of engaging with your students, multiple mediums. So already, I've invited you to comment and ask questions. I'm going to be monitoring those and trying to, respond while I'm talking or while Love is talking or vice versa. But figuring out ways that we can engage with you, Love and I are used to this one-on-one, seeing our people on screen or in person, and so to not be able to see you is a drawback for us as presenters, but and sometimes as an educator you're going to feel that drawback. And so how do you still continue to push that motivation, push that it's inspiration with your students, even though you're not able to engage in the way you used to be? Maybe you not both of you have a mask on and are far apart from each other, and it's an awkward situation, but you make the best of it. So here we go. Here's some of your all-time favorite quotes. Be the change you want to see in the world by Cesare Pironi. Erica Farley. Always remember you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and love more than you know. Hey, that's Winnie the Pooh. I like that one. That's awesome. There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Peter Muste. Mary Hoffa. You are the dreamer and the dream. Oh, Star Trek. That's the good one. Um, Louis Skundrum. Dream, believe, achieve. Um, Tiani Thomas. I believe that everything happens for a reason. People change so that you can learn to let go. Things go wrong so that you appreciate them when they're right. You believe lies, so you eventually learn to trust no one but yourself. And sometimes good things fall apart, so better things can fall together. Ooh, that's deep. Sometimes good things fall apart, so better things can fall together. We need to hear that right now, right? A lot of people, we feel that with COVID-19, things are falling apart. Um, but things fall apart, so things can be put back together. Uh, there is no try, only do. And that's Yoda. Sarah McGuire. Thank you, Sarah. Kara Lay. Once in a while, you get shown the light in the strangest places if you look at it right. That's the Grateful Dead. Whoa. Mary Grace Tagarelli. Guess what? She went old school. And again, I rise. I love that one. Um, Rachel Curtis. Never a failure, always a lesson. Tiffany Franklin, be yourself. Everyone is already taken. Oscar Wilde, that's a good one. And then Brooke Kremer, is it true? A very existential kind of question, right? Well, thank you. These are all great. All great. Uh, Dr. Archie, I like students to learn to listen to their inner voice. When in doubt, the answer is no. Interesting. Yes. Profound. These are wonderful. Thank you for sharing them. And again, it's just you know, we gain a sense of who you are through these wonderful quotations. So thank you. Um, and I'll continue on now with the presentation. So, and you could continue putting in your quotes. It's great for us to continue to engage with them. Um, so the objectives right now of the conversation are to provide emotionally responsive strategies for reaching students through various platforms, including social media. So that'll be one objective. And then the other objective is to demonstrate EQ, emotional quotient activities to conduct with students. Now, this is important because a lot of times people say, oh, yeah, connect with them at an emotional level. And then as educators, now we're finally sitting there and they're in the classroom and we're ready to teach them some content, but we may not have those very practical ideas on how to do it. Same thing on the virtual platform. We may already, be teaching academic content and might need to take a pause and remember, oh, there was this 3-minute activity that I learned from, Love Jefferson that really helps me get my students grounded. And it goes a little something like this, right? So we're going to model that for you today. So you'll get some of the theory behind it, but then you'll get some of the actual practical and back to the theory, just so that we're kind of clear on the roots, the foundation of why we're doing what we're doing. So it starts. Everything starts. We know we come from a storytelling people, Love and I, and everything starts with a story. And a lot of your students come from storytelling people, right? It's important to honor that knowledge. Um, a lot of times is different for different communities, right? The production of knowledge in many marginalized communities is through storytelling, passed down through generations. Uh, so one of my favorite quotes, actually, I'll give you one of my favorite all-time quotes. It's from the author Leslie Mormon Silko, and she says, "A word of caution: our stories are not just for entertainment." I'll say it again. A word of caution: our stories are not just for entertainment, right? That our stories, maybe in a conventional world, a story is just for fun, for entertainment. But in some cultures, the story itself is knowledge. And as a system, isn't it beautiful to acknowledge that stories that your family passes on, those stories are uh, academic knowledge themselves, right? So, okay. So I was giving an assembly at a high school in California, and the students there were very attentive. It was about 2,500 students. And after my assembly with the students, uh, uh, well, right when the assembly started, the principal introduced me and she said, "This is Dr. Victor Rios. He's met President Obama. He has his TED Talk has over 1.5 million views." And the students heard her say this. Then I gave my talk. They were very attentive. Then afterwards, a bunch of students came up to me and they said, "Hey, Dr. Rios, let me have your TikTok. What's your TikTok?" And I said, "I don't have a TikTok." This is like, 6 months ago, right? I said, "I don't have a TikTok." They're like, "Uh, yeah, you do. The principal said you had a TikTok." I said, "Oh, no, no, no. That was a TED Talk, not a TikTok." And the students are like, "TED Talk?" And they just walked away from me, right? They were very upset. And the reason I tell this story is because, you know, in 6 months or in a year or in 2 years, how quickly the generations change. Because 2 years ago, high school students, were into TED Talks. Some are still into them. But TikTok comes in and it takes over even the phrasing, the sound of it. Like you say TED Talk, people are thinking you're saying TikTok. So I had to go. I had to go and really explore what this TikTok uh, was. So I'll get into that TikTok situation in a minute. Right. So some of the research we've done during COVID-19, right, with my research team, is really trying to understand the experiences of students. In this case, it's high school students with remote learning, with distance learning, right? And one thing I like to say is that social distancing does not have to mean uh, disconnection. That to have social distance does not have to mean social isolation. So I'll say it again. Social distance, social distancing should not mean social isolation, right? That many times we think that because we have to be apart from each other physically, we also have to be emotionally apart from each other. And students are reporting back and saying, "Look, I feel disconnected. I feel socially isolated." So understanding their social context is important. Saying, "I want my teacher to know what I'm going through." Um, a lot of students are saying that they want one-on-one attention. That's hard to do But sometimes if you're cutting down on the amount of time you're spending with students, the whole class on these platforms, right? It's hard to manage because, you could be talking and 4 are listening, 10 are they blank their screen out, 5 are just maybe interrupting you, maybe making comments they shouldn't make or doing silly faces or worse, putting up silly pictures of stuff. And you're thinking, wow, this is tough. But a lot of students are saying, I don't even necessarily like that large group experience on these platforms. What I like is the one-on-one attention. So what some ideas they've given us is that they've had teachers who have instead of spending a lot of time in the large group conversation, they'll spend a little time in the large group conversation, and then they'll have one-on-one meetings, kind of like how Love and I are having this almost monologue here, right? Or dialogue, two people that they appreciate that a lot more and get a deeper sense of connection with their teacher when that's happening. And then a lot of times students are saying, look, remote learning, we have a lot going on. We have to take care of our little siblings. We have to take care of ourselves. Our parents are essential workers. They're out and about. We have chores. We have so much going on. And teachers are just stacking up a lot of homework on us saying, look, do this, do that, do this, do that. And we're having to learn it independently. It's just too much. So what they're saying is less homework and more home care, right? That you're showing them that you care for them. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, when you're showing them you care, uh, that then uh, they start to feel like they can actually open up to the learning process. And the quote of one student, he says, meet me where I'm at. I want my teacher to meet me where I'm at. So where are they? Let me maybe provide an example of where they might be. Some of you actually have seen where your students are at in terms of social um, media. So here, let me see if I could show you a couple of these. Now, one thing I'm going to show you some social media posts that teachers are doing, not students, teachers. Well, I think one of them is a student one. But I want you to reflect on the theme. What are the teachers doing in these posts? Some are really good posts, some are not so good. And I'll identify that later on in a minute here. Okay, I'm gonna play that one more time and see if we can let's see. Okay, there's one. It's just that one is poking just fun at students asking teachers, hey, do you have a TikTok? Okay, now this is a this is one where this may have happened to you. This is one where a student or students kind of took over the whole. They coordinated to take over the class, and this might happen to you, right? Um, this is on the light side, but it still could be annoying. So let's see what happens here. So this
Victor, you're muted.
I'm very sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going to go back here and talk about um, this one with the students taking over the classroom can get a bit annoying because what happens is that if you're trying to teach and then they start to say, do a dance, while you're trying to teach them, it's probably not, conducive to learning. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my audio here, but I will keep it moving. I think when the video plays, I get muted, so I'll keep an eye out. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'll keep an eye out on the mute. But this teacher here was making fun of parents and students because she's pretty much telling the parents, look, uh, there's there's a moment where we're trying to tell your students are not behaving. Now it's quarantine. Now you know your students don't behave, and now I'm going to poke fun at you. All right. So we just got a couple more to go. All right. Now, this one is really, really inspiring. It's a teacher that decides to bring her second graders just little treats. And this is way back in April. This is for Easter. So she made her students Easter baskets and dropped them off at their place, socially distanced. Did it take money out of her pocket? It did. Did it take her extra time? Probably. But did the students feel supported? Absolutely. Absolutely. So sometimes we have to go out of our element and show our students support, not necessarily always spending money out of pocket, but definitely finding ways to go that extra mile to show our students and their families that we acknowledge and support them. Again, these are very kind of simple. This one in particular, right? A real simple little TikTok. Not only is the teacher showing what she did, but then her students and families and parents, right, can see, oh wow, look at my teacher. This is my new incoming teacher this year. Look at what she did last year for her students, right? That it's a very public kind of image of what it means to be an educator, that we're connecting with our students. Now, like I said, it's not an obligation. We don't have to make this public, right? You could make it within the systems that are in um, the district and not so much a public, um, social media page, but figuring out ways to put out messages to parents, kids, their families, whether it's in a public forum or a private forum. That's the point we're making here. And the teacher is an example. Um, one of the things going on here is the student who is pretty much catching teachers in their inauthenticity, right? He's pretty much critiquing them. He's saying, look, right now during quarantine, teachers are saying they miss us, but we know how they act towards us sometimes, especially maybe kids that are at promise, right? So here he is saying that teachers show him messages of care, but in reality, sometimes he doesn't get treated with care. So there he's, pretending that, teachers are yelling at him for the past 8 months. Okay, so these are the various TikToks on education. I do have to tell you, my wife Rebecca and I, uh, we both teach together, and we did a TikTok for our students. Again, I was exploring this new platform, and so I'm gonna show you that. A little bit embarrassed to show it, but I have to say that students felt connection. And I want you to notice the messaging that we put there, right? We didn't do it just to be funny. We did it to send our students messages who were not necessarily uh, logging into Zoom, who were not necessarily taking the course because they were too busy with the problems of life, but they were on TikTok. And we got messages from students we had never interacted with. So I'm sorry you can't hear the audio, the song, but you get the point. And again, we thought it was really silly, but you notice the messaging we put on there, right? To our students, we appreciate you. We believe in you. Thanks for your hard work. Stay brilliant, right? I mean, just little positive messaging to students. Again, you don't have to get on TikTok. That's not the point of this conversation, right? But it is important to create some kind of content, and it could be video it doesn't I personally think that there should be either a picture of you, it could be a video of you, right? Even if it's in a private forum, just to an email, right? Just to your students, where it's just you waving. And then if you want to play around, like I said, the TikTok technology is just it's easy to work with, but there's so many other ways, right, to put out a messaging where there's a picture or a video waving hello and a little positive um, messaging appearing, right? So here's the types of social media posts that I've seen educators put together. And there's many, many teachers on TikTok. I just want to let you know. And some districts are very strict. I want to acknowledge that. Again, though, I think that sometimes we misunderstand all social media. And we think that it's this platform where, everyone's kind of having private conversations with each other. When in reality, some social media can be set up where it's very kind of um, one directional. The message is just put out there, but there's no expectation of one-on-one private conversations. That's where I think you should use the tools within the district to have those conversations so they're on record and everyone knows and sees that what you're doing in terms of communication with students and their parents. Okay, so some posts are making fun of students and their families. Some posts are complaining about the profession, uh, but some posts are showing care for students and their families. That's the post that I really, really appreciate, but not so much as a person, right? But also as a researcher, right? It's showing the emotional support in new modalities, technological modalities. And some of you are saying, look, I've held back from TikTok because I would like to know if our district gives the okay. Again, this isn't an argument about getting on TikTok, right? This is more of an argument about finding creative ways with TikTok as an example of um, doing posts that could be in the private, um, district based tool settings where you can still do content. Like I said, it could be on the Google Classroom page, a picture with some positive messaging. So you know what some educators do? Some educators are very private, but they'll have a dog. They'll post a picture of their dog and they'll say, "This is my dog," and send positive messaging through there. And that's okay. You know, you don't have to always be on video or always, have a picture of you, but to really connect with the students in these kinds of ways, I think is important to kind of think of some of those creative ideas. Um, Sending positive messages to students is another one, and then educating students and their families on an issue. This is important. This is to be a global educator. Um, I talked about the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and global racism, and so um, of course, you know, this conversation of racism could get political pretty quickly, but it is important to make it fact based, make it about what students are going through, and letting them be the ones that share their feelings and stories in relation to what's going on in the world. Um, and in this case, it doesn't have to be on social media, right? In this case, it could be in lessons, it could be in the internal communication systems provided by the district. And I do have to say, someone's just said that TikTok is more relevant for our kids. Like for, whatever judgment we want to place on TikTok, whatever is going on around the country and world with TikTok, our kids, right? There's all these surveys. They're on TikTok, even little second graders, right? And so for us to not meet them with where they're at, or at least understand where they're coming from. One other thing you could take away from this is not so much, oh, go open a TikTok account, but it could be go explore, do a hashtag, a search on TikTok, educators, teachers, and you'll see what teachers are posting. And so you get a sense, oh, they're doing that on TikTok. I could do it on these other platforms that are more privatized to our district, and that's fine too. Okay, so now we're going to kind of get into the theoretical model a little bit, and then Level also take over both on the theoretical, but also then the practical in terms of the making those connections beyond, in this case, beyond social media as well. Love,
Great, thanks, Victor. Um, Really, really good
I think you're
information.
on mute, Love.
Uh, no, is it on now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can. Okay. Okay. Great. 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 Thanks. Really, really good information, and something that I would just encourage us to just think about is our perspective and our points of view. Um, our young people, they have their own points of view. Imagine at that height with whatever experience that they have, looking up the way that they view and see the world is a lot different than the way that we see the world. Also, understanding that the way that we see the world as adults differ from other adults that are within our same environment. So points of view is really important because our point of view is really what creates our reality. And there are so many different studies or models that are out there that we can pull from that speak about this. What I'm really excited about is the attention that emotional intelligence and EQ has been given, especially lately within the past few years. When we look back to 1995, where it was Daniel Goleman came up with the whole emotional intelligence and the studies, and he was breaking it down. What that led to was the SEL movement, social emotional learning, and industry, working a lot with companies. I spent over the past 15 years, I spent 9 working in the corporate environment, doing corporate team building and working with groups like Google, with Snap Inc. I was running their orientation. So as they were exploding and growing, everyone would come up from all over the country, all over the world, and they were hiring weekly. I'd see 40 people weekly for the span of 3 months. It was every Wednesday. And we'd go through team building and I'd get a chance to make connections with people. And there was a lot of things that I learned about what it was that they were about to do and the things that they were building out that lends into this whole social media world that we're at. And what's important for us to understand, and this is just my view, and please excuse me when I make a statement of what's important. I'm not speaking for you or anyone else. I'm definitely speaking for myself and just sharing my perspective and my point of view. What's important is for us to understand that the emotional well-being, the emotion within us, is going to allow us to be better partners, better teachers, better educators, better professionals once we're able to tap into that. And that's where a lot of investment is going into in the professional development space, from my experience, from what I'm seeing. And so if that's the case, the end road for our young people is to go off to college, earn a higher education, and then get off into the workplace and the workforce and have this ability to thrive. And so I think meeting them in that emotional space or having this heightened sense of empathy and understanding a little bit more may be a challenge because there's so many things that we have to do, right? We have to get things done in order to get into that place. But humans are built on feelings. And the number one thing in Goldman's emotional intelligence, and I believe it's the top of the whole SEL, social emotional learning competency model, is self-awareness, right? So self-awareness, the ability to accurately recognize your thoughts, your feelings, your values, and how that drives your behavior. All right, your ability to accurately recognize your thoughts, your feelings, and your values, and how that drives your behavior. Now, the trick to it is needing to hack the system a little bit. And so I do it by way of experiential education, right? We learn by doing things. And so in anything that I'm doing with people that I'm trying to instruct, the messaging or the questioning that I'm coming from is, so what were you thinking, or what did you think about that? How did that make you feel? And how does that influence your behavior or the way that you have responded to things? And so we all have these habits, and we can form habits or we can spend time trying to break habits, right? We can reform a habit or we can spend time breaking habits. What industry is doing as far as technology is they've broken down how to create habits within their products that they put out there in the marketplace. So an example of a habit, if everyone will, I know I can't see you, it's a little different. I'm just going to take your word for it that you're just going to engage with us. So here's a simple way of looking at it. So if everyone takes their arms and you're wherever you're at, just kind of wiggle them out like this. This is something that you can do to with students or even your staff to kind of get grounded into a place with your arms, and then just cross your arms. So cross your arms, just relaxly. Okay. Now, look at which one's on top and look at which one's on bottom. Just notice which one's on top and which one's on bottom. Okay. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to reverse that. So you're going to change and switch it. So whichever one's on the bottom, bring it to the top. Okay. And just hold it there for just a few seconds. Okay, now, if you could, just in the comment, can you just type in what that felt like for you? you're able to just type in what that felt like for you. We'll take just a few seconds. How did that feel when you had to switch? Uncomfortable, unbalanced. It's really hard and uncomfortable. It is. It is.
Awkward. Weird.
It's some concentration. Look for it. Strange and awkward. New biases. Had to think for a second. Okay, great, great. Because that's the way that we do. So now let's go again. Shake your arms out like so. Distracting. Sweaty armpits. Yeah. So go and then now cross them again. Just cross them again. Okay. Now hold. Now I'm willing to bet that a large majority went to the comfortable space. What felt comfortable? Am I right or am I right? How many people went to the comfort spot instead of the awkward spot? Yep, yep, you're right. Yep, me, yep, yep. Smiley face, yep, yep, yep. And that's what it is. That's what we're dealing with. I did, but I felt a little different. Comfortable, yes. We want to live in comfort. We want to feel at ease all the time. And what has happened is that's just a habit. It's a habit that is formed since we were young. This is the way that we did it, and we want to keep doing it this way. What's being asked of us now is to explore a new approach and explore a new way. And maybe the social media, diving into it, connecting through social media, maybe this is the call, to adventure or the call to action. And so something that really intrigued me was the work of BJ Fogg of the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab. And this is how they call it the hook model. And this is how products are designed in order to create habit forming behavior for its users. And so this is why we log on. This is why we scroll. This is why when we're bored, there's something that's happening emotionally. It starts from this emotional state. And so there are 4 parts to it. And please, if you want to dive into it on your own, check it out, because this is kind of the mentality that I believe we need to approach our messaging as we're communicating through social media. That's pretty much what it is. Now we have a new form, a new way that we need to communicate. And what's important is to understand the power of our messaging, our message. So if we just backtrack a little bit and we just look at communication in its original state, like its simple state, communication has multiple parts. And a lot of you know this, maybe a review or coming from seeing it a long time ago, but communication is a message or a message sender. You're the message receiver, and then there's the message. Okay, message sender, message receiver. Okay. Now, it's only communicated when the message receiver understands the messaging. If I'm just saying something, I'm just talking. But once you have understanding of it, then we're in communication. You understand what's going on. And it's the same approach when we're trying to send messaging over social media or over these networks. Okay. Now, here's another piece to it is the message has a life of its own. The message has the verbal, it's just the words, the paraverbal, how we're saying it, and the nonverbal, the way we move, gesticulate, how body language. And so if any of those are off sync and we're not thinking about that as we're sending a message, the message may be misunderstood. An example of paraverbal is to say, okay, let's say, James, I didn't say you were wrong, right? James, I didn't say you were wrong. James, I didn't say you were wrong. Can you see the difference between what is being understood based on the paraverbal usage in that? Let's get a Y or an N in the chat box. It's so small that sometimes just the way and the tone, even in the way that we write or we post or do things, it may misconvey what the intention was. How are you presenting? How you present the message matters. How you present the message matters. Absolutely. And so that's the thought and the idea. And what we're doing is we're trying to follow this hook model. And we can just look at the big, this is about product, but we can just look at the big picture. It's a trigger. There's four parts. There's a trigger, there's the action, there's the reward, and there's the investment. The trigger is what is the message going to elicit or trigger in the person that's on the other side? So we're thinking about the viewer, we're thinking about our students, we're thinking about what is the message that we want to elicit to them. And if we think that in mind, what is it that they're missing? Maybe they're missing connection, social interaction. Maybe they're feeling a little bit alone, isolated. So when we think about them, we're thinking about the message receiver, we can better put together our messaging so that we can get them in the loop to stay in communication. So the trigger part is what are the things that we're trying to get them to see so that they can then engage. The action part, what is the simplest behavior? What is something that they can do that's a call to action thing? And if we look, it's a like here or a share here or a repost here. Those are the things that are the actions. And then with the reward, it's what is it that's going to drive them to come back? What leaves them wanting more? Like if they see Dr. Rios and Rebecca, dancing like that, and there's a lot of interaction about, dancing or the dance moves or the dogs, then the next time you dance again to a different song, most likely they'll tune in. So it's a way of finding out how we can create that habit and bringing them back so that they can invest their time in order to be engaged with us as we're trying to find them and meet them where they're at. Something that I want to share is that what they are buying is our content, our motivation, our inspiration, but how they are paying for that is their attention. Our goal is not really so much just to engage, because we can just throw it out there and engage, but we want their attention. And if we look at where are all the eyes now? Where's all the attention going to during these times? It's going towards devices. It's going towards TikTok, the record-breaking download of the past year. And if the attention is there, then what we're trying to do is get them to pay attention to what it is that we're trying to convey, which is the positive messaging of you're not alone. Here's something that you can use to motivate yourself. And there's ways in a formula that you can do it throughout the week. So you don't have to think about, oh, I don't know what to do. It seems so large, like to be able to post something every single day. Well, there are ways that people and systems and structures, the way that they have done that in order to get your attention, to have your eyes on your feeds if you are engaged in social media. Okay. So here's some suggestion. And Victor, you'll head to the next slide. It's document versus create. Okay, it's a simple personal branding strategy that people use in social media, and you'll probably see if you look back at it, like certain days of the week. If you go through your feed, if it's someone who's trying to become an influencer, there's something that they do, and it's really systematically laid down from day to day throughout the week. So you just document versus create. Understand what your message is. What is the message we want to get across? Okay, what do I want to share or show? And so a way that we can do that is breaking it down by each day. And these are suggestions of a weekly simple posting guide. And this is something that would be done every single week or every other week, because those that wanted some motivation, they're going to find out what your motivational quote is. So we'll run down this. So Monday is Movement Monday, doing something active, right? Or just getting out and walking, talking while you're on there, sending a positive note within like 15 seconds, right? Speaking it into an awareness of how it makes you feel, right? Man, I feel good right now as I'm just taking a walk out. We're gonna go around try this new trail at this new park, just whatever it is, so they can see you. What we want students to do is see us. There's more to us than they think. I think about my fourth grade teacher and fifth grade teacher, Miss Ball and Miss Johnson, and I'm like, I always thought that they were just this figure. I didn't realize that they were actually real people. And so right now, what we're needing to do is get people to be more connected and have our students more connected, because that's what they're needing. It seems like that's what they're needing at this time. Tuesday, Thoughtful Tuesday, message of kindness and empathy. Wednesday, why Wednesday? Pondering or asking a thought-provoking question, seeing if you can get them to engage back and forth. Thursday, Breakthrough Thursday, sharing something that they've overcome, a challenge or something in their lifetime in real time, a message of hope and resiliency. Friday, I like to do Gratitude Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Family, friends, student appreciation, just giving appreciation or shouts out to those that are tuning in. Those are things that are simple that we can do. And if those messages are consistent week to week to week, then you will be able to get some attention. And then hopefully they'll continue to come through, which will then form the habit, because now you're feeding them something. And you really don't have to think about much, but just document. And any of those things can be creative and you can do. And so I see we just have a few minutes
Yeah.
left.
What we could do, Love, is we can continue the conversation in the next session, right? Moving on to the bigger picture beyond social media. I know, Love, you have some great activities to kind of demonstrate, and that will happen in the next session. And also, I know we want to make sure everyone gets enough time to go to lunch and come back and listen to the remaining sessions. But that'll be the next presentation for Love and I. Will be continuing on Love's presentation here, but he'll get into those very specific strategies as well in terms of activities, practicalities to work with students again through these mediums. And then also, we know you'll be seeing some of the students in person through social distancing and through this hybrid model. And so once you see them, so they don't feel so awkward, right, in this new environment, how do you engage with them? So we'll be back soon. Have a good lunch, and thank you for being here.